Today we want to learn about the bracha on wrap. The wraps are always a question. What are you supposed to do? Since the wraps are made in such a way that they are from thick dough and they are baked. The way you make a wrap is you take regular flour, you put water in it, put a little bit spices that you don't really feel to the amount that it would change the bracha, maybe a little bit of oil that doesn't make any difference in the flavor, the taste that you can't feel, therefore it doesn't change the bracha from hamotzi to mezonot. So therefore, it seems like the bracha for wraps should have been hamotzi lechem min haaretz, especially that it's done as a thick dough, not liquidy with a lot of water that you spill. And therefore, we need to discuss such a thing to see what is the correct bracha. There are three things that the halacha tells us that require to say mezonot on and not hamotzi lechem min haaretz. One of them is if you make something crackery, crunchy. Secondly, if you make something look like pockets, like those burekas that have in them, let's say, fruits or other things, and those that are with the dough is made with a lot of either oil, milk, juice, such things that would change the flavor, the taste of the dough to sweet. Those things would be mezonot. But there's also another thing that Chazal teach us, and that is in order for something to be hamotzi, it has to have torita de nama, a look of a bread. And therefore many things, although they're just water and flour, don't have a look of a bread. You can't say on them hamotzi. For instance, pasta. Pasta is made out of water and flour, but it's cooked. It doesn't look like bread at all. And other things along that idea would not be hamotzi lechem min haaretz, rather mezonot. One of the things that the halacha brings down in the Shulchan Aruch is that if you have something that is very thin, a piece of bread that is very thin, dak min hadak, is considered to be mezonot since it doesn't have torita de nama, doesn't have a look of the bread. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says that if you spill the flour, which means it's bli laraka, it's not a thick dough, and therefore it made into a very thin bread, that it should be bore min mezonot. But many poskim explain that it doesn't mean that it has to be bli laraka, it has to be a liquidy dough, it has to be a soft dough that you could spill and it just spills out on the frying pan or wherever you are baking it or processing it, but rather the last result, that's what counts. And therefore, as long as you have it very, very thin, that is bore min mezonot. This is how many of the poskim bring down halacha lemaaseh. Starts with Aruch HaShulchan that says that everything is, by the way, in Siman Kuf Samechet, where the Shulchan Aruch speaks about it, and the Aruch HaShulchan is in Seif Katan Kaftet Lamed. It's brought down in the Minchat Yitzchak. He says that idea the same way in Chelek Aleph, Siman Ayin Aleph, Seif Katan Vav. He says clearly that anything that is made, he brings from the Shla, that if it's made so thin, it doesn't get the bracha of hamotzi, rather mezonot. Also, Moshe Levi brings down and he writes that such a thing would become mezonot. The Lashon is in Chelek Bet, in Birkat Hashem, Perek Bet. He brings down in Seif, in the Tanaim, he brings over there in page Kuf Mem Aleph, that it's hamotzi as long as shelot yeh daka veraka midai shemitkapelet bekalut. It shouldn't be so thin. What is the category of thin? He says that it folds easily, just like wraps. Wraps fold easily. That is very, very thin. So he gives you a category over here, a measurement of you would know when something would be considered mezonot. If it's so thin to the point that you fold it. Now, don't get mistaken with the lafa. Lafa is a little bit thicker, although it folds easily, but it has some thickness into it. But wrap is very, very thin. The way you make wrap is, we said, with that thick dough, and then you press on it or you roll it, that it becomes the thinnest possible. Such a thing, he says, is mezonot. He brings over here, it's the opinion of Tosfot, that we pasken like in the Shulchan Aruch. And this is also how the Tshuvot Ve'Anagot of Steinbuch Shlita says in Chelek Gimel. He brings down in Siman Ayin Gimel, he says that, again, he brings down from the Mishnah Berurah, in Kuf Samechet Siman Katan Lamed Zayin, שאם נילוש דק מן הדק מברכים מזונות, אפילו קבע. Even if you קובע סעודה, you make it into your meal, and you eat the right amount, which means you eat 3-4 bitzim, or whatever it is, still the bracha should be mezonot on such a thing. אפילו קבע, it's מחלוקת over that. Now, also Rav Rubin from Har Nof was posek like this להלכה, and the posek, or many poskim, bring down the same idea, that this wrap should be mezonot. Rav Gidon ben Moshe gave a shiur and also was machriya like this, that it's mezonot. But there are poskim that say that such wraps should be said on it hamotzi lechem min haaretz, because they hold that it's not thin enough. This is how it's brought down in the Sefer Chashuv Vezot HaBracha. It's brought down like this from Rabelsky as well, and some other poskim as well. But we have a rule. Even if you hold it's a machloket, it's something that's not clear in halacha, some say yes, some say no, it's doubtful. Whenever you have something that's doubtful, if it's hamotzi or mezonot, the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Samechet in the Beit Yosef told us clearly the rule that you make mezonot. Whenever you're not sure if something is hamotzi or mezonot, you make on it mezonot. Not sure, it doesn't mean that you yourself not sure. If you're not sure, find out, call a rabbi, look in the Sforim. It means in the halacha it's something that's not clear, like this wrap, because therefore we would make on such a thing mezonot and not hamotzi. This is without saying that those wraps that have, with the whole wheat, that have in it honey or sugar to make the whole wheat taste a little bit more sweet, that for sure should be mezonot because of that. And that's a machloket, Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, how much sweetness you have to feel in the bread. So that's a question on bread altogether. But if it's a whole wheat wrap, much more reason to say mezonot than the regular wrap. But even the regular wrap, that's not whole wheat, that's regular rye flour, whatever they make it out of, such a thing should be mezonot. The poskim also explain that people are not kovea suda on a wrap. They don't make a meal out of the wrap. Now, the poskim that I mentioned before bring down that even if one is kovea suda, as I mentioned before, and many of the poskim brings this down over here, still the bracha should be mezonot and not hamotzi. The only question is, if you eat enough of it, you eat the shiur of gimel dalet betzim, should you make on this hamotzi or not? Even that is a machloket. But definitely when you don't eat enough, and that's a large amount, you don't have to say hamotzi, say mezonot, or lechol hapachot mitzad hasafek, one should say mezonot. Some explain that people are not kovea suda on it, although you might say people do make a meal on such a thing, but you don't make a meal on the wrap itself. That's why it's called wrap. It wraps the food. You're eating the food. The wrap is only there to wrap it up so you can eat it all together and give a little bit flavor and a little bit more satisfying. But it's not like a piece of bread that's the main meal that's going to satisfy you, a piece of bread, pita, or something like that, and you put some things in there to give it a little bit more taste, to make it a little bit more flavorful. But over here, you're eating, let's say, tuna wrap. The tuna is the food. The wrap only wraps it up in order that you can eat it. That's why it's called wrap. So therefore, for such a thing, the poskim, majority of the poskim would hold to say mezonot, and even if you hold it a safek again, you would still say mezonot for the reason we explained.